All right, awesome. Okay. Here we are. We're playing the last game of the 5D Chess Pro League Season 4 against Mage. This is a really important game, not because, I mean, Mage and I are near the bottom of the table. There's no way that either of us will win. However, this is the last match, which has crucial implications for who will win the overall 5D Chess Pro League this season. I won't go into that. I'll let the guest commentators talk to you about that. The guest commentators who I have here, who have volunteered very generously to give you some coverage while I mute everything and then focus on the gameplay, are Andre. Say hi, Andre.
Hello.
And Ryan. Say hi, Ryan.
Hello.
Okay, there they are. I'm now going to mute. I'll let them take over. I won't be able to hear them. Stream will be able to hear them. I'll mute my own mic as well. It'll be fantastic. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to mute myself. Take it away, guys, and I'll catch you on the other side of this thing.
Okay. Hello, chat.
Hello. So Dreamer says, I bet Ryan wears glasses. He correctly deduced that from my voice. How do you do that?
Yeah, this is scary. So yeah, we should talk about the results of this game. So if Samet 2 owns Mage, then I think we tie, like completely tie, right?
Yeah.
And otherwise you win, which is lame.
So if I want to win, I'll be rooting for Samet, but I don't particularly care. I'm all right with either result, but if I want to win the tournament, I need Samet to get a point.
Yes, or even half a point.
Oh my. I'm rooting for Mage. That's a very exciting opening. Ah.
Oh,
he didn't submit it.
He submits it. Oh, what?
Come on, Mage. Whatever. Well,
Mage
I'll give him a chance
always
to redeem. If Mage plays a fancy opening as white, then I will root for him. So far, we have the very standard stuff.
Okay, so I am hoping to hear some secrets.
You want some secrets?
Yes.
Hmm.
Well, not necessarily right now.
I don't have any secrets for this position. This is actually I do. I think I would like Bishop D3 here, I think. Not caring about that attack on the pawn. Queen B3 is a very safe option. Trading off the queens. But if you want to shoot for more...
Yeah, I'm not a fan of trading queens, usually. Even if it's good.
I don't mind. I basically like any normal developing move. I don't think you need to defend your pawn at all. Knight B to D2, Bishop D3, Queen move. It's all good. I don't think that, I think you can even play B4 here.
B4?
And, B4, and then maybe even A4, and try and just, like, attack the enemy queen. It definitely creates a bit of a weakness, but I don't think you can actually exploit it.
Yeah, and it's discourages castling. queen set later, which I kind of hate.
So you're basically saying that you're going to castle kingside or maybe play like king f1. But I think both of those options are fine. You can commit this early. Like since your opponent has committed their queen to the left side, you can. That gives you a lot of leeway. Samet chooses the very safe option, which is not surprising.
Yeah, and actually I think Samet might probably have like some advantage if queen stalls the board for some reason. I don't know why, but I have this feeling.
I think you don't want to trade queens, so the queens are just going to stare at each other quite a while. Because if you trade queens, you can open your A file, and your rook will be quite good.
Yes.
One kind of cool idea that white usually has here is to play queen a3, since your opponent doesn't have their e pawn pushed. You can play, and if they do push their e pawn, then you can play bishop to d6, and then you have your two dark square diagonal pieces on a very dangerous diagonal.
Yes.
So that is sometimes an option.
Yeah, it looks very nice. But now probably mage will push e6.
Yep, and then it's going to be a very symmetrical, very safe position with the queens coming off. Like at any hint of danger, you can just trade the queens if you need to.
Well, trading queens not always makes position much less dangerous.
Yeah, if you're playing black here, you're very happy because no pressure has been put on you and you can trade queens. So and it's completely symmetrical. But Samet I think is quite good at positional play for his level. And Mage would probably prefer a more tactical game. So
yes.
in that sense, Samet is kind of at the advantage.
Yeah. So Mage is all about like cheese. Well, not all about cheese, but he likes some traps.
Yeah, he's played some very silly openings, and I'm hoping to see one. Because he's guaranteed to stay in the pro league, so he's good on that sense. So he can play quite a crazy opening as white, and he has done so before against Samet to great success. I believe the Daigolian, which is knight f3, then knight a3, and he's beaten Samet a couple times with that.
Yeah, against this kind of openings, I always try to find like a force to win, and then I fail. For example, Tones plays e4 all the time, and I have a embarrassingly bad score.
I have against the Daigolian. I have a couple plans. One of which is very dangerous, and Mage, I believe, like he said that he had a win against me, and I don't believe him, but I'm still very scared. So I have a safer opening against the Daigolian now.
So this position is kind of safe for black, but at the same time it's completely symmetrical, and white are up a tempo. So
What do you do as white too? It's pretty hard to find like a good move here.
well, yeah, knight e5 looks.
Yeah, knight e5 is always your, like, if you don't have anything else to do, it's usually pretty good.
Intuitively it looks good, but I don't trust my intuition.
I think you can definitely get away with it. Your opponent's queen, it's not going to get around to like the h4 square, for example. So
Yes.
It can't really be dangerous. The question is just if your opponent can take your knight and then maybe taking with the bishop and that might not be very positionally good because you've kind of traded your better knight for their worse knight. So I'm not I kind of don't like knight e5, but there isn't much else to do.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can trade queens and then play bishop c7, for example, and the bishop can be annoying, but sometimes the bishop also just gets chased away and does nothing. So knight e5, which might be the only move really. There's not much else. You can maybe play. I mean, there's you could have played h3 maybe and try and play g4, maybe g5 after. But that's very risky.
Yeah, that looks like there is
You can,
nowhere for the king to go.
yeah, but you can at least you at least threaten to do it. You might not actually play. You might never play g4, but you can still threaten it because you can play g4, chase the bishop, g5, chase the knight, and then then there's a column to the f7 pawn. So there's something there. Something it's worth considering. And as mage here, I pretty much anytime my opponent puts a knight on e5, I would just take it if you can, because otherwise the other knight will come to f3 and they'll sort of defend each other, and then you can't get rid of it. Then it'll be there for a while. So you got to get rid of it immediately before it gets support.
And the mage does it.
Taking with a pawn is always tempting, but it makes your dark squared bishop pretty weak. And even if you like a pawn on e5 is actually quite good for your opponent defensively. Like it makes castling queenside much safer. Like it blocks a lot of. It actually blocks you more so than it blocks your opponent. And it's easy to target. Like after pawn takes e5, that knight it has to move, but it can go to d7 and immediately be attacking the pawn. So it's quite natural to play against that pawn. It's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and actually the bishop, after bishop takes, is not that bad. Like, maybe after some queen trade, it can go to at c7 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing right now. Okay.
So I think taking with a pawn is a mistake. This also sort of gives your opponent's queen now it's aiming at e3, which is good. Your opponent's bishop can come out to c5 and also be aiming at e3. So it's a very classic plan is just point all of your pieces at e3. It's a pretty good one.
Probably Samet's plan is knight f3, knight d4, or something like that.
The problem with committing too hard on the king side now is it's very safe. It's not very safe, but it's getting safer for mage to castle queen side. That pawn blocking the bishop. That e5 pawn. Still, of course, have to deal with the queen is staring at it, so it's still pretty scary. But in the future, so the knight can go to either g4 or to d7. I would prefer d7, I think. But if you can go to g4, you're already threatening to sacrifice it into f2, and your queen is pointing it along that diagonal towards f2, so it's a real option. And it attacks f3 or e3, which is the easy plan. Just point everything you have at e3.
Yeah, but probably we can just play h3, and g3 doesn't seem to be a problem here.
Mm-hmm.
And if he sacks his knight,
I'm looking at the sack after h3, so knight g4.
maybe we can take
h3.
and then just trade queens.
If you can trade queens immediately, you're probably doing fine. That's probably what Mage is calculating, because that's really the only option. Is after playing knight g4, you're basically saying, you know, if you play h3, I'm sacking onto f2 because the knight has nowhere good to go back to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I suppose e4 is also an option that I haven't considered it at all. That would just make things symmetrical again. All right, so Mage is
Yeah,
probably intending to sack on f2.
yeah, and for example, but Samet can just probably take queen first and then play h3.
Well, you don't want to take queens now, because then the sack might not happen. Maybe you do, because the sack kind of has to happen. Otherwise, where's the knight going? So this is fine. Yeah, this is interesting.
Or even
Now,
just maybe even
Go on.
ignore this knight, because now what is this knight doing? No, but probably.
Like, although you pretty much have to retreat with your knight, but you do have the open a file, so it's not going knight to g4 wasn't a total waste.
Yeah, so now essentially black has knight out of the game, but rook in the game.
It's not a bad trade. Anyways, yeah, this. I think black might be. I think this was good for black, actually. I think, like, although your knight is out of the game temporarily, I think the game is going to be pretty slow right now, and getting your rooks into the game takes forever. So I think that knight will return to the game faster than Samet can develop a rook, for example. And one common tactic to be aware of in positions like this is, for black, rook takes on a7, rook takes on a2. That would deflect the rook off of the defense of b1, which your bishop is pointing at. Of course, right now it doesn't work because the knight on d2 is defending b1, but Samet can't really move that knight without allowing that tactic. But for now, you've just got to play knight h6. You must be considering knight takes f2, but they're like, if there's something there, that would be crazy.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything.
So
Unless
submit is
maybe,
looking at moving the knight, but as I said, that would allow rook takes a2.
yeah, uh, this, yeah, it will be pretty bad because then,
You'd have to play like rook c1, which is
yeah,
very awkward. Then your opponent can take on b2 as well, and then the other bishop, the dark squared bishop, can start going to maybe a3. So things very quickly fall apart if you allow that. So this dark squared bishop for Smet is very weak. You might even consider taking that knight, but I would feel very terrible since that's the piece of blacks that you think is the worst, but your dark squared bishop is also quite bad.
okay, kind of a crazy idea. I don't know. Some reason I kind of like e4.
E4 here
Yeah, I don't know. It probably doesn't work. It just fine.
that does give your dark squared bishop somewhere to go, which might just be worth it. You're not that scared about this is one of the benefits of having a pawn on e5 is that
Yes.
you're not actually worried about the e file. So e4, oh no,
Yep.
mage can probably enter a winning position here. Rook takes a2, and you can't take the rook back because bishop b1 is checkmate.
Yeah, and after rook c1, rook takes b2, then even there's maybe some rook b1 threats.
And the pawn on e5, if you didn't have that pawn on e5, your own bishop would be stopping your opponent's rook from moving because of bishop b8 mate. As it stands, you've just got nothing.
Yeah, and mage, yep, finds it.
Mage does find it. So in such positions, you've got to try and castle, I think, because your king is wide open. You're about to lose all of your pawns. So you've got to play. You can play like g4, develop your light squared bishop, and castle. You can probably survive for maybe a little while longer.
Or actually, maybe rook d1 is a little bit better to try to play like.
It's a tough call because I'm worried about where do you develop your light squared bishop here because you have to move it somewhere to be able to castle. Right now, pawns are stopping most of the squares. You're not going to be able to put it on e2 because the rook will be able to take it, and you can't put it on d3 because the bishop can take it. That's really the main problem here. If you can get your bishop out somewhere, then you can castle, and at least you're fighting.
Yeah, and if rook d1, then bishop d3 doesn't even work because then I could lose the rook. At least.
So Milch is asking why can't he take the rook? If you take the rook, then bishop b1 is checkmate because you have no defense of that square, and it attacks along that diagonal to the king. I really can't decide between rook c1 or rook d1.
Yeah, maybe even just.
Just gotta pick one, I guess.
I'm kind of even tempted to play bishop d3 and just give up the rook. Maybe.
Do you have to give up the rook? Like, so if bishop d3, then you can take it, obviously. You take it with your rook, and then rook b1.
Oh,
Can't
yeah,
really
yeah.
block. Then you can't really block with your rook, because after, rook takes d1, king takes d1, that dark squared bishop is going to come and mate you, I'm sure.
But actually, how will the bishop? Oh, surfacing, yeah. Although, we can like play knight d4, and maybe then there is no way for the black bishop to. Oh, okay, wait, okay, yeah.
After rook takes b2, like I'm wondering is can mage just immediately take on f2 with that? Probably can.
And if king takes,
Takes maybe knight g4 and then bishop c2, travel onto f2. That might be one turn too late. Actually, mate.
yeah.
Rook takes b2 and then maybe say like you play g4 or g3. Then rook takes f2, king takes f2, knight g4 check. You take the knight and then bishop c2, and you're probably threatening. You're going to be threatening a travel onto f2 pretty soon.
I think it's already in time. I mean, I might be miscalculating.
I think this will give Sumet some chances to get out of this. Because
Yes.
now, yeah, now bishop e2. It's very dangerous, but might just defend. Maybe even knight d4 here. Knight d4 would be crazy. You have to defend your rook. I think Sumet's going to get some chances to, to keep playing and to get his king castled, which is good. The game is not over, unless there's a travel onto e2 onto that e2 bishop, which is definitely dangerous. I'm not sure if it wins. But besides that bishop travel onto e2, not sure how mage can increase the pressure here.
Well, probably.
I wonder if there's a Jurassic onto a1. It's not a very long distance Jurassic, but it could still be dangerous.
But Jurassics are getting better with time.
Yeah, I think a Jurassic onto a1 onto that a1 rook would be pretty devastating. Because I don't think there's any piece that could block the check. You just have to move your king, and then the other rook would take on a2 immediately. So Jurassic onto the A1 rook is probably winning with just as long as it has like a few turns of distance into the past. Sumet does look like castled,
Yes.
so there isn't any immediate Tchaikovsky, so he might be all right here. Both rooks are defending that A1 square.
And actually, now it's black that can't really castle.
Black could be in trouble actually.
Yeah, because now Samet is looking probably to play rook a1. Oh, white.
The main question, I guess, is like, is a bishop travel onto e2 good? But also, could the bishop drop all the way back to g6 and travel onto to g2 to try and do a very delayed Tchaikovsky? I think as a mage, you kind of have to go for one of these travels. Your position, it's not looking very good.
Maybe maybe even Bone Cloud with mage, if not going for travels.
Honestly, the d7 square, it's not that bad.
Yeah, and knight on h6 actually does one job, which is it defense 7.
Honestly, king d7 it's probably a pretty good move. Probably might be the best move. Like with king d7, black is not looking too bad. Of course, like your opponent does have like two pawns that can start attacking your d5 pawn, so it's risky, but you can get your other rook into the game very easily. There's no immediate travels. It should take at least a while, at least a few turns for danger to start creeping in. And also, Samet does have to waste a turn defending against bishop d6 into a Tchaikovsky at some point. Samet does have, like, he can't just immediately start, going after his plans. He has to make a few more defensive moves, and then the game will begin again.
Yeah, at some point, like rook a8, and then maybe will at some point threaten to take on d1, and then play maybe rook a1.
That's one of the big advantages for black is black will have access to some Jurassic rooks if he can find them. Besides that, Samet's position I think is a little bit better.
Whenever I see some bone cloud, I'm never sure if I want to play it because it looks good or because it looks stylish. Oh, mage goes for the travel. Oh, he
Travel
can
onto
travel
f2.
all the way to f2. Yeah, I don't see the continuation.
It doesn't look too dangerous. I think you can defend that. It is tricky for mage to find a good move here. Just falls back with the bishop, which is fair. Want to move your bishop maybe to occupy the columns towards your opponent's king. It also, yeah, Samet basically has to put a... Pardon?
Okay.
Sumet basically has to play like knight g5 or bishop g5 to stop bishop g6 into a Tchaikovsky. So bishop, yeah, so that bishop on e7 will control that square, which is nice. Lexi is asking why that travel onto e2 wasn't good, I believe. I think you can just take it with the king. And the only
so
square you have to be worried about is c2 to your opponent's bishop. And you can play like rook c1. And your opponent only has one distraction check, which is not enough.
okay. Some reason Discord froze for me, so I will be back. Like I see the static picture, but everything else works fine, which sometimes what Discord does. I don't know why.
Okay. Alright, so Lexi has a line. King takes f2, knight takes f4. You mean, I don't think a knight can move to f4. Maybe you mean knight g4? Then bishop c5 check. But bishop c5 is also... Not sure what you're talking about, Lexi. Oh, the bishop is on h6, so yeah, it can't take on f4. So now Samet has some options of sacrificing. You can sack on f2, and there might be a Tchaikovsky onto g2. You can also take on e6 onto g7. I'm mixing up my notation, but knight takes on f7, king takes f7. You might have a travel onto g7 to your bishop, which, although the knight defends the square now, it didn't one turn ago, which is all you need. The knight takes f2, king takes f2 is probably impossible due to a very imminent travel onto e7. Am I mixing up my notation again? Whoops. Knight takes f7. You probably can't take it back. So that goes for it. This is looking very dangerous for mage. I'm so sorry, Dreamer. I'll try to say the square coordinates right. I've only more recently started to really get into using the square coordinates, and I'm still bad at it, so. So mage correctly notices that can't take that knight, the king. You could take it with a rook though, so now Sumet has to move.
Okay. Hello?
Hello? Are things fixed?
Okay, nice. So I fixed the static image, and then for some reason audio dropped. Yeah, now everything is fixed, and now the game like is completely unrecognizable.
Yeah, Sumet got a good sacrifice, and you couldn't take that knight because of a Tchaikovsky, so now the position is getting quite dangerous for mage.
Yeah, looks very good for white because those bishops guard everything around the king.
King
Which can
d7.
make
That still might be a safe square. It's very funny. It's not easy to it's not trivial to just crack through and checkmate that king.
Well, actually, what if just mm, next bishop e5?
Bishop e5, threaten g7.
Yes, or maybe take the knight. No, yeah, bishop e5 first.
Bishop e5. I'm looking at maybe rook a1 to try and go around the other side. It's hard to do
Yeah,
that
rook
too.
a1. But rook a1, then the bishop is kind of annoying.
Yeah, that bishop on c1, it really forces you to to not leave one. Not you have to always leave a rook on your back rank.
Unless you're very confident you're checkmating faster.
I'm not sure c4 this move actually does anything because your pawn on there's no way mage is ever taking that pawn on d6. That pawn is going to stay there until the end of the game. So you can take on d5. Cement will or mage will take back. Not sure that does anything.
But,
Wow, he did take on it.
yeah, but actually I think
6.
it made some sense because after like takes, if mage takes with c pawn, then maybe rook c1 was something interesting, threatening to them, like curing the bishop and the c7.
But this looks very dangerous.
Yes. Okay, Samet goes all in, which probably he didn't even need to.
This all in is looking good. The king has nowhere good to go.
Yeah, but also Samet doesn't have that many pieces left, so he has to be careful.
So Met has to be careful here. Like I'm sure this is winning, but there's going to be some sort of a travel which wins, but you have to find it. And he only has 2 minutes.
Maybe he already found central, and it was just oh yeah, letting this bishop there seems.
Yeah, bishop there. That's a very dangerous bishop. And mage unfortunately runs out of time, but
Yes, that would have been mate one. Yeah, probably like the only move was k6. I don't see any other way to defend. Or takes b2.
well played to submit.
Yes. Okay. He at the end was up on time, which is nice. But also
Submit flags mage.
yes,
What an unlikely result.
yeah, if you could bet on that, you could have become rich.
Right, so I'm hoping for a fancy opening from mage, but mage did lose, so he might want to take this very seriously. We'll see.
Okay, e3, not super crazy, but unusual.
Yeah. His mage has always played e3, right? This is still his main opening.
Is it? Well, actually, I used to play e3 just to play something different, and it's just sort of. But
So Met like for his last league match, I think he asked me for some opening information, and I think he asked me about you know
Yeah.
how to play against E3. Like I think he wanted to know, or I tried to direct him to the tones anti E3 defense, where you can play like E6 and then C4, then Queen, not E6 C5, then Queen A5, and do a counter travel and all sorts of fancy stuff. But I don't think he knows all of that stuff.
Well, but if you play e6, c5, c5.
Yeah, so you play knight f6, then you play e6, then c5, queen h5, and then you have some counter travels if your opponent goes for the travel onto f7.
Yeah, I think against mage we played a lot of games in a line e3, e6. Then I played knight h6, and then I tried to go for counter travels with queen h. But I don't remember now. It was so long ago. I know in the zero there is a counter travels where you can recapture that queen. So that was kind
Like
of
a long horizontal travel.
yeah. There are a few ways to do it because it actually can recapture from a lot of squares.
Mm-hmm.
So it can recapture from h5, f5, d5. So either a long horizontal or a Jurassic. But even though I came up with some lights, I don't remember either of them.
Mage is going for quite a crazy opening, which I'm
Yes.
glad. So I'm rooting for Mage.
Mhm. I obviously root for cement.
Oh wow, this is already.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
hopefully this game doesn't end in 4 turns.
but probably cement can set up some Jurassics.
I hope so.
Because yeah, bishop e6 is too slow because queen can travel one move before and then bishop takes.
Can you set up like a Jurassic Queen
Oh,
next turn for Sumet
yeah,
to try and hold on? I'm not sure if there's anything that'll work. You don't have that much distance.
oh,
Oh,
mage
he can
travels.
travel immediately. Uh-oh.
Oh yeah, he can already
Maybe
travel.
well, maybe a Jurassic Bishop will exist. Maybe this game is just over. You know what? Sumet got 1 win, so now he can say that Ramadan is the only reason he didn't do well in the league. So that was an important win. He got his win. Maybe he loses in like 10 moves here, but a Jurassic Bishop. Maybe he loses in 10 moves here, but
But actually, this Jurassic Bishop kind of works because
boom, yeah, it might actually. Oh, the Jurassic Bishop.
wow, this is a crazy game.
Right. So the game goes on. The Met inventing new theory on the fly. Sumet will be able to recapture that queen immediately with his knight on f6 from across the timeline. That will leave like on that bottom timeline after that knight goes away is very undeveloped. So it's he might survive a few more turns, but it might still be lost. Because
Yeah,
queen
and
like
on the top timeline, mage can even take the knight again on f6 and then play again queen h5.
that's a funny thing about 5D chess is you often have these loops where you defend the checkmate and then the same
Yes.
checkmate happens again.
But maybe Summit will have some, you know, diagonal tricks if mage creates more time.
If Samet could find Samet basically needs to find some danger of his own and try and try and put on some pressure. Otherwise, I think that same mate is going to come around again.
Yeah, it's hard to see how to threaten. White is black here.
They're, like it is so much more developed. Like black has no pieces that can move out pretty much. At least on the bottom timeline, which is where white is going to go for the win. Just have nothing. On the top timeline, mage is just capturing a knight, probably just trying to keep that top timeline, make sure that nothing much happens there. I'll find his winning travel on the bottom timeline.
Yeah, or he can find the winning travel on the top timeline. Or actually, because like the timelines are 2 away, they can even like cross timeline travel.
Yeah, the queen on h5, for example, can go that is threatening f7 on the bottom timeline. So both queens are threatening f7 on the other timelines as well.
Yes.
They're threatening two different f2s, kind of four since they can both travel.
Yeah.
F2.
And they're threatening f2s in the present also.
Yeah, so this is if Samet can manage to defend this, that would be quite the miracle.
Yeah, so yes, before, Samet shouldn't have automatically played c6. So this is like because all this theory guys, they always play always say just play knight f6, g5, c6, and you will be safe. So
Maybe another Jurassic bishop. Good old bishop e6. If you do 3 Jurassic bishops in a row onto the same square, that would be a win. The big problem is you can go on.
yeah, Samet looking on to Jurassic Queen, to start Jurassic Queen.
Like you want a Jurassic queen. The issue is like either one of those queens can go to f7 and mate. So you have to defend. You have to defend both f7s.
Yeah, and you cannot play Queen d6 on both boards because then just you lose in the present to one of the queens taken on f7. Oh. The funny thing is actually he actually cannot really travel from the top board to f7 because the knight will defend that.
So that's one of the travels dealt with. But you can travel with the other queen, and then the knight doesn't defend itself.
Yes. Or yeah. So basically, mage kind of it's just so unpleasant to play with black. But probably mage kind of can, or Samet can kind of assume that mage cannot travel from the top board. But even then, yeah, probably bishop e6 is actually forced, right?
Probably, but yeah. I think
On both boards.
there's really nothing here. I don't think you can do anything. Even if you get a counter travel, there's going to be 3 boards in between. So there's not going to be any defense. You have to find a mating travel, which there's no mating travel. I guess the one outside idea you might have is to try and travel twice with the queen and end with a queen on h4.
Yes, I'm kind of looking at maybe some ways to set it up, but I don't really see how he can do that even.
But that's the only line to the king. Everything else is defended. So you got to go for that.
Maybe we travel through before and hope that mage doesn't notice or something. But I kind of have a feeling that mage will notice. Oh yeah, but okay, I was slightly miscalculating. Because it will happen after the travel. Oh, no, but now it's just mate in one. Yes. But why am
Is that
why
mate
is
in one?
mage
You can
taken?
take both queens.
Yeah, why is mage?
There's a throw.
Maybe he's trolling. Okay.
Maybe he's just trolling.
Yeah, but basically take the knight on the top board and like bishop takes c6.
Yeah, and then it's check on both boards. And,
Oh wait,
and a check into
but
pass.
bishop defends from the middle board now. Okay, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, right.
And the king.
Right, so it's not that simple.
Yeah, I kind of completely forgot to think about the middle board. So yeah, I might have again.
There's several opportunities for mage to throw.
King himself. As we which is the proper 5D scientific term.
The self scan, classic. I think you want to travel. I think you can just travel with the top board queen onto f2. I don't like doing it with the bottom board queen. Not that it's probably still winning, but I think you do the top board queen, travel onto f2, onto f7 instead of that queen.
But if you do the top board, the knight can recapture. But then.
Oh no! Oh yeah! Oh right! It can't. Even though you're not traveling on the same timeline, it can still recapture.
Yes, but yeah, maybe even after night recapture might can have something like. Okay, so this trail was like it's going to be something like mate and 3, so Summit has probably time to cheat. Oh, yeah, Queen b6 looks interesting. The travel.
Yeah. Then you immediately threaten a travel onto g4. No, you don't.
Yes.
You have to threaten a travel onto h4. So and there are 2 checks on that board, so that doesn't seem like anything.
Yeah, but it's like physically the closest.
It is physically close, so you got to go for it.
Oh, but Mage has some checks actually with bishop b5 and then take the blocker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big issue here. And if you get a travel, you're so undeveloped. You don't have the paths to your king covered. White can just check you. Probably just bring out the queen, and maybe the queen can do like a cross timeline check or something. Syrtis apparently had a mate in 2, probably without traveling, I assume.
Yes, it looked very promising.
That would not surprise me at all if there was a mate in 2 without traveling. Maybe Syrtis is doing a callback to the many times I've missed mate in 2.
Oh. Yeah, oh, by the way, do you remember maybe like seeing a very weird game in streaming matches?
Which game is that?
Yeah, well, I don't. So there was a game that I don't remember who, maybe like Mage, Narik, and somebody else played like
Yeah,
full
yeah.
2v2 game,
Well,
but
I was
whoever
in the
checkmates wins.
Is that the game where I was in the call and you guys were saying you can't understand what's going on?
Yes, yes.
I think I wasn't paying attention to the game, but
Okay,
I was just hanging around.
probably would have been very confused. Yeah, and they were joking that you will be very bad at this game because you basically have to like have super forced mate and twos to win, so that even your uh, teammate cannot prevent. Okay, I'm trying to think about this game, which is probably not what commentators should do. They
Well,
just
there's a lot of minutes to wait before you do a losing travel, so
yeah. Okay, so the thing is,
you know it's
mage.
You know it's a real shame. You can't travel onto that. You see that bishop, the bishop that's taken on f6? Your queen can't travel onto that because you have a bishop on e6 blocking it. But that would be like the perfect square to travel to.
Yes.
That travel, that might almost save the game, but you know, it doesn't exist.
So maybe travel on. No, that's one.
Now, Sirius is suggesting traveling to g6, which definitely
Yeah,
seems the most promising, but
and maybe even though mage has like 2 checks.
I think you get at least one turn to do something.
Yes, but well, probably only 1 turn. And also maybe mage can have some cheese with playing queen h5.
Maybe
Just
even
to,
maybe even queen g4 to just like go take the bishop.
mm,
And so like at that point your opponent has to do something. So you can just put your queen in the line of fire as long as you're threatening something.
yes. Actually, I think queen h5 will threaten. Oh, no, it will not. Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine anything other than queen b6.
It looks
We
like
can,
Samet has honed in on that as his best shot.
but like in the early days of 5G, you can always. There were a lot of scams in positions like that. It's, this kind of like the game went. The games where somebody finds a plan, travels, and thinks where he wins. Oh, Summit decides to play it out, which might be a smart move actually.
You can wait to do your travel.
But maybe it isn't. Like generally, I think it's not a good idea to play out on the boards that you don't have to, unless you have specific.
Like it's really hard to tell in a position like this if it helps or if it hurts. But yeah, I've seen positions where it's better to play out moves, and sometimes it's bad.
Basically, because then opponent also has to commit to some moves. And maybe here,
I
if
guess
mage,
you get more travel options because your opponent has to make moves. So
yeah, and maybe like he wants mage to put his queen on like h5 to then try to recapture it, so that mage cannot delay queen h5.
might also force your opponent to like sacrifice a queen to keep you in check on those middle timelines or something like that. But I think it makes sense to play out as far as you can. Not that it's probably not going to help, but it might.
And it also might hurt because now there is a king on f7 on one timeline and 2 bursts.
Yeah. But that king is going to have to be there anyways, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so mage goes all in with the queen sack.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Met does have maybe some other travels with the bottom middle board, but it's unlikely.
And unfortunately, queen even guards h5, so and probably there is no other way to recapture the queen. So Summit has to go for checkmate somehow. Hmm. Yeah, I was actually always kind of under the impression that it's generally better to not play it out for some reason. But yeah, I'm kind of learning.
I thought I was under the impression that you wanted to play it out as much as possible before doing something.
Interesting. Now I think it's actually probably there is
G6
preferences
or G3.
because you're committing to the move and you're forcing your opponent to commit to some. So it's just the matter of who has. Oh, Samet looks at some kind of interesting night level, but it's to a completely undeveloped board. So
I'm surprised Mage didn't play the check.
yeah, and Mage actually preserved his checks. So
Now he's created this board where maybe Samet could travel to this board somehow. If it was check,
yeah.
then he couldn't. So I think you want to play your checks as early as possible.
Yeah, but sometimes you actually kind of want to save checks up. So then you prevent the travel by actively checking them on the support.
Yeah, but Samet could play like d6 here and then stop the check. Maybe even like queen to d7, so that if you try to set up a check,
yeah, queen
Samet will
to
take your bishop, and then there are two queens which maybe have a travel. I think I really like queen d7.
Yeah, queen d7 looks very good, but unfortunately I don't see the targets for the travel. Because like on this timeline we will not be in time to travel to d3, and on another timeline there is queen shaking us on f7.
You know that queen in the top middle timeline for black. I think that queen hits, or it doesn't quite hit g3. It's one turn too slow. Black queen on that top middle timeline just barely does not. You can't go to g3. But if it could, that would be a win for Samet, I think. Or it is check there. I forgot. I can't see the queen. The pieces are too small. So never mind. Everything I've said is a lie.
Yes. Your oh, this is.
So can that queen recapture the checkmating piece?
Yeah, this is somewhat interesting mage
Then
can
there
go
is a
with you.
check on that board that was just created, so looks like
Oh,
there's
yeah,
just going to be a
yeah.
bunch of checks, and now
Yeah.
Samet has no travels, so it was a good attempt. You really can't allow something like that to happen in the opening.
Oh, but mage. No. He doesn't bone club. It would have been fine if he like bone clubbed it on both boards and allowed the recapture.
Oh, the Chad Bong Cloud on the original timeline. Is that the original timeline? I know it's not.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I can congratulate you.
Yeah, I guess I win.
All right, I'm back.
So
Hey.
Oh,
yeah, I call hex here because mage is like part of the theory gank, right?
Yeah.
And they always say you play knight f6, d5, c6, and you are safe, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was too afraid to do anything other than that. Because I was just pretty sure that it was fine. Like, I don't want to like reinvent the wheel, spend all my time. But I think instead of c6, you can just afford to play e6 there, and you're just totally
yeah,
fine, right?
yep, probably.
Yeah, there's like nothing.
could play like Queen D6 perhaps.
Oh, maybe queen d6, yeah. But then your queen's a little awkward. Like long term, your queen is awkward on d6, I guess.
I think D6 is an alright square. It's not easy to target.
That's true, especially with the bishop frappuccino.
You're all right if you have to move it a few times. It's usually all right as long as it stays active.
Yeah. Well,
Your opponent has made like some very silly moves, so again you can afford some wasted time. But
yeah. And GG's to Mage. And congrats to Ryan as well for winning the Pro League.
woohoo!
Oh, what how'd you guys feel about the games? Give me some closing thoughts.
That game one was quite interesting. I think
Yes.
you made some positional mistakes early on, but
Yeah.
when you managed to castle, I think Mage didn't go in for the kill quite well enough, and then you played quite well.
Well, cheers, man. Appreciate it. Do you like taking with the recapturing after he takes the knight with the bishop rather than the pawn?
I think the pawn, you block your own bishop more than anything else.
Yeah.
So I think you take with the bishop and you're doing fine.
I was only concerned. I think the bishop is just so much better there, especially because it means that the pawn on e6 can no longer defend f5. So you can just attack f5 because if they move the pawn, then they mate themselves. I was just worried about the bishop travel onto f2, which probably wasn't an issue because there was no queen, but there was like the knight there that could have delivered a check if the travel had happened. But I can probably just play knight f3 the turn afterward anyway and prevent like a travel to the turn where it's open. So it still doesn't make sense. But I felt pretty bad about the pawn capture right after it happened. But I mean, it worked out in the end. Yeah. After c6, you're losing IMO, says Mage. That's kind of how it felt. But I should have played e6. Well prepped. I spent a decent bit of time calculating travels to f2. Yeah, I was just hoping that with 2 travels I could get to h4 somehow from somewhere, or to f2 myself. I don't know, but yeah, I felt like I really didn't have options after c6.
So Dreamer says, congrats to Ryan for finally managing to reveal his voice.
That too.